Welcome to Persons of Interest. I am your host, Derek Dockett. The St. Louis metro area has a very passionate prep sports scene. With many unique communities within the area, there are passionate and loyal fans, students, and graduates from all of the different public and private high schools around St. Louis. Sports is one thing that brings all these communities together, especially competitively. The area is fortunate to have the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STL High School Sports providing great coverage and stories about the many student athletes in the area. And one of those storytellers at the forefront of that coverage is David Kvidahl. He's one of the longtime reporters that has been on the scene for many years covering all the big games. Recently, STL High School Sports has been publishing all-decade teams, and the boys basketball selections were a very hot topic on social media. In this podcast, I talk with David about his time covering prep sports in town, some of his favorite sports memories, and the all-decade team selections. This is David Kvidahl on Persons of Interest. How long has it been for you at the Post now? Is it 20 years?
I've been covering high school sports in St. Louis since I got hired in June. I started June 4th, 2001 at the Jefferson County Journal.
Okay.
And then in 2002, I moved over to the West County Journal, which covered pretty much everything from 170 all the way out to the St. Louis County line, headed on Highway 40, and then in Eureka and Lafayette and all the way out that way. So in the current role I am in, I had started that in the winter of 2013, 2014. So I've been around a little while.
Yeah, you've seen it all. So if anybody can look back over the last 10, 15, 20 years of prep sports in the area, you're one of the go-tos.
Certainly, and I take a lot of pride in that, because when I started at the Jefferson County Journal, there were journals in Jefferson County, North County, South County, West County. We had a bunch of them in Illinois. St. Charles County had an office. There was a Wentzville, Warrenton office, and all of those offices had between 2 to 3 guys just doing high school sports, just doing local sports.
Yeah.
On top of a news staff that covered, town halls and local governments and community news. We had a food section with Janice Denham, who was our food editor, who was really great, and an army of photographers that were out there taking pictures and documenting everything. And over the course of time, as we know, if you've been paying attention to media stuff, I mean, the newspaper industry's dried up. The weekly papers have dried up. COVID, Corona, whatever you want to call it, the RFT stopped publishing for a hot second. The North Sider, South Sider, and the city stopped publishing. I mean, it's the Webster Kirkwood Times, the South County Times. So the whole newspaper industry has been going through it now in particular.
Yeah. And
I've managed to still be here, and I take a lot of pride in that. That means a lot to me to be able to continue to do what I do, considering I know how fortunate I am, because I know a lot of people who would love to be doing this, who spend a lot of time to try and do this, who aren't. So that means a lot to me to be around doing it. But when we're talking about this, Earl Austin has to be the first guy.
Oh, yeah, that's true. How dare I forget about Earl Time Update?
Earl is the godfather and the deacon and the goat, shall we say?
Yeah.
And he's been around and seen a lot. And I did Frank Cusimano's radio show earlier today, and that's a guy who's seen a lot in his time and has just always been very supportive of high school sports. Me in particular, Frank has always been very kind to me, but he really loves watching the kids play ball and do what they do. So yeah, I've been around a little while. So
for me, after spending like 7-8 years solely dedicated to college sports, particularly Missouri Valley Conference, where I worked. Now working for the last 2 years in the Wentzville School District. I guess even before then, when my nephew played basketball at Hazelwood Central a couple years ago, I didn't really pay much attention to high school sports in the area, with the exception of when I was in high school. Parkway West, class of 1997. Thank you very much. I had to get that in there.
Please do.
But I remember we were not great at football when I was there. I remember we were okay at baseball. Basketball, we were just sort of middle of the road kind of thing. It wasn't the 91 state championship team. And when people bring up some names, I can think of those and like, oh yeah, I've heard that guy. But there's a lot of names I know I definitely hadn't heard of. There's some guys, there's some studs, and definitely like I'm paraphrasing all this to get into the all decade thing that you guys did. But before I even jump into that, I wanted to ask, how in the world, when you think about all the student athletes you've covered, because you not only just basketball, track, football, you got several guys on the squad that cover baseball and everything. But I know you are heavy into football and track in the spring. But all the kids you've covered in your time there. How do you sum up the level of talent that we have just in the St. Louis area? And St. Louis area meaning both sides of the river, because I know that'll be part of the debate that we'll get into with the basketball thing.
Well, I would say that we have as good a talent as any other part of the world, honestly. Our top tier kids can compete with anybody. I think we've seen that again and again. We've had 3 NBA lottery picks in the last decade. Jason Tatum, Ben McLemore, and Bradley Beal were all taken in the NBA with their, I think McLemore was the number 7 pick when he went to Sacramento, and then Jason and Brad were both each number 3. So those guys are elite. You're talking about track. This year was supposed to be Justin Robinson's senior season. Now, he wasn't going to run for Hazelwood West.
Okay.
He was going to go international because he won the Junior Pan American Games 400-meter gold medal last year, and then was third in the Pan Am Games overall 400-meter dash last year. He set the U18 world record for the 400-meter record last summer, as he won the 100, the 200, the 400, and anchored the 4x4 relay at Hazelwood West as they won their first ever state championship in anything, and at the state track meet. So we have guys, and he might not even be the best. Like Brandon Miller was going to be, well, he is a senior at John Burroughs. He's on the path to be one of the great middle distance runners we've had in the state, if not the country. He's got multiple world records and the youth world records in the 800-meter run, and was primed to do something absolutely phenomenal. He's going to go to Texas A&M to continue collegiately. And we've got people who do things at the next level and are exceptional. Ezekiel Elliott is a prime example of a guy who was at John Burroughs and running over people. He never, unfortunately, got to win at the Dome, but I think things turned out okay. He won a national championship with Ohio State. I think he was number 4 in the NFL draft. He's the highest paid running back in the league. We've had a number of players who haven't. When I did the all-decade football team, the thing that I really was impressed by and kind of surprised by was just how many guys got to the NFL from here, and they weren't necessarily drafted. I mean, we've had guys who get picked like Zeke, and we've had other players who are selected. Terry Beckner was selected. Roderick Johnson out of Hazelwood Central was a big time pick, a big time player here, and then I think a 6th or 7th round pick. We've had a lot of guys who got drafted and signed and played in the league. We've had a lot of guys who didn't get drafted, got signed, and found a way to continue to grind and stay in a professional football career. Deron Neal, who played at DeSmet, he was the feature story for the Offensive Player of the Decade thing we did last Sunday for football. I mean, there was nobody better in St. Louis in his time. And the handful of guys, and he's in the conversation for best overall football player to come from this part of the world. I mean, he got one tryout or one preseason camp with Denver, the Broncos, and it just didn't work after 4 years at Oklahoma, which that's a hell of a place to go play football.
Yeah, no kidding.
A lot of people get caught up, especially the kids. They get caught up in, I'm going to go to the league, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to be set. And it's like, well, getting to the league is half the battle. Staying in the league might even be harder. Yeah. Because there are so many guys every year who have that same dream, that same goal. It's a grind. I mean, and we, just as far as talent goes, we have, you can do anything coming out of St. Louis. You can go be a world champion. You can go be a youth world record holder, an international record holder. I mean, Jackie Jordan-Kersee is maybe the greatest female athlete to walk the earth. I mean, she's certainly in the conversation. She's from East St. Louis. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So you can go do things. There are opportunities here. You can make it happen. It's just, you You have to make it happen. But people from St. Louis will have every opportunity to do that. There are resources here. There are opportunities here. And that's my summation. We can compete with anybody.
And when you say anybody, for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, has there been a time when St. Louis wasn't the quote unquote dominant? We didn't have the dominant programs in terms of basketball. We'll just stick with basketball, football
Sure.
in the state. Because I know for a couple of years, you'd see some teams in Springfield that were strong in basketball. And it comes and goes with the talent, I know. Because I'm thinking of some times where, some kids that get recruited and they'd stay in state. And from my experience, there was a good run of kids from Springfield when I was in school down there, and they ended up going to school at Missouri State, and kids from Kickapoo. You hear about kids from Kansas City, but it seems like St. Louis has been trending upward in terms of both basketball and football in terms of controlling both of those sports in the state of Missouri recently.
Well, we've always been basketball. St. Louis is the best basketball city, I think. I think that's pretty
easy to say.
Safe ground to stand on, that we have produced the most basketball talent and the highest level of basketball talent and the most successful basketball programs in Missouri. I don't know that there's any doubt about that. Now, Kansas City's had its teams and its players. Springfield, I've been to the Bass Pro Tournament, I think, for the last 5 years. Springfield shows out, man. A lot of people were crabbing when the state championships moved to JQH down there from Columbia and Mizzou, but
they like basketball down there.
It's a little further of a drive, but Springfield is crazy for hoops, man. Yeah. It is second to none in its love and passion for the game, and it's evident. It is evident at the games. It's evident at the Bass Pro in particular, which is one of the longest running, best tournaments in the country. And I have relished every opportunity I've had to go there. It's been a real joy in my line of work to do that.
And they also
make it fun.
They get talent from out of state to come to that event too.
Oh, they get 2 Springfield teams, and then six of the best teams they can pull in. Oak Hill comes just about every year. They bring a team in. I just lost the name of it, from New York every year.
Christ the King.
Christ the King. Well, with Lamar Odom played for and has had a real big time tradition in New York City. So they come every year because they help kick it off. But yeah, that's a great tournament. You see some of the most elite talent in the world down there, and our guys go down there and they play really well. Like Chaminade with Jason Tatum and those guys were down there. Webster Groves, Courtney Ramey, Belleville West, and EJ Liddell and those guys were down there. And Vashon was down there this year.
Yeah.
Played Oak Hill in a great semifinal, a really great semifinal. So there are, Missouri loves basketball, and there are pockets that it's even crazier than it is in the middle of the state, because Columbia's got a good tradition too. Hickman and Rockbridge have had teams.
Yeah.
They've had teams. So, but I think St. Louis is where it's at. Now, football, there was a really good stretch where St. Louis had a hard time cracking through Kansas City, man.
Okay, so that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
there was a pretty good stretch where Kansas City really dominated, which is, it is what it is. Like the talent goes back and forth sometimes, but I think it was 2018. 2018, St. Louis won classes 3, 4, 5, and 6 in Missouri. That's the first time that had ever happened, that St. Louis had swept the majority of the available championships. Trinity won Class 3, Ladue won Class 4, Vianney won Class 5, and then CBC went back to back in Class 6.
Wow!
And that was when you talk about regions dominating, like Kansas City's really great. I don't know that it's ever had four teams from its area win in a single year. Now, obviously, having 6 classes is something that's relatively recent. I think that was 2002 that they put that into place.
Yep, you're right. I'm looking at it now.
Something like that. So,
yep, 2002.
So it hasn't been like a long, glorious time, but it's 18 years now. We've had 6 classes, and it's only sweeping 3, 4, 5, and 6 has only happened one time. So we've really been good. Last year didn't go so well. Lutheran North was the only team to make it out, and they won Class 2, and they were. Oh, I take that back. DeSmet won Class 6. I'm tripping. So DeSmet won 6, and then Lutheran North won Class 2. But but after winning all, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that was a bit of a come down, unfortunately.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. So, somehow you remember all this stuff. You're like a wealth of prep sports encyclopedia here. Well, yeah, obviously. Let's jump into these all-decade things. First of all, I guess it's easy to, we love content especially online, and this is a great idea to do this because I've been keeping track of it because we like to recognize a lot of our student athletes when they, do the sports stuff, and that's sort of a little bit thing I've taken ownership in my role of recognizing the sports kids at our 3 high schools at Holt, Liberty, and Timberland, and we've had some kids, especially on the wrestling side. Wentzville's had some really strong years in wrestling in the past. Never too strong of football. They've had some glory years with Timberland's had
Monty.
Yeah, Monty.
Monty Ball.
You read my mind. We've had some studs on the baseball side too, and things like that, and definitely softball. Basketball. You got the internet riled up this past weekend with this all-decade basketball team.
A little bit.
Did you? So I guess this will be my first question. Was it hard to put this team together?
Well, honestly, the first team came together pretty. I think the first team was pretty. I don't want to say easy, but the first team wasn't hard because I think Jason and Brad are so obvious. I thought EJ was pretty obvious, and Courtney Ramey was pretty obvious. I think those 4 guys were really had stamped themselves as first team guys. Their resumes are impeccable. That 5th spot, we ended up picking Roosevelt Jones, but Cam Beachide was in that conversation at Cardinal Ritter because he was so dominant. Now, his post-high school career really went sideways, unfortunately, for that young man.
Yeah.
It hasn't been great. But that 5th spot was tough. But then as I got going, we produced so much talent that it wasn't easy to figure out, okay, who's a second team kind of guy, because who's a third team kind of guy, because we at the Post and STL High School Sports, we cover approximately 45 miles from our downtown office. So that is all of the Metro East and then some. I mean, that's how we get to the Wentzvilles of the world and the Timberlands of the world, because that's way out there, the Borgias and the Washingtons. So you include that mass of space. I mean, none of these. I mean, Borgia is one of the best small school programs in state history. Borgia didn't get a kid on this team.
Right. Right.
So I mean, that's a group who would obviously merit consideration, and you have to take into consideration just how difficult it is in Illinois, and which is what I did. Like people who aren't familiar, Collinsville is one of the most storied basketball programs in the region. They've been playing basketball over 100 years. They've had dudes come through. They've won state championships, which is harder to do in Illinois. And Rayshawn Taylor didn't get his opportunity this year. The last 2 seasons, 3 teams from Illinois have won state championships. That's the first time that's happened in a long time, because Belleville West last year won Class 4A and Eastside won Class 3A. So you have 2 state champions in one conference in Illinois. It's unprecedented. Yeah. And Collinsville won that league this year for the first time since 96. For all its history, it's the first time they'd won it since 96. He was their all-time leading scorer, which it was over 2,000. It was 2,100 and change for his career. He's a 4-year guy. Really did most of his damage sophomore, junior, senior year, but was on the varsity as a freshman. And I just didn't want to hold it against him. Like he had obviously elevated himself and put himself in a elite position at a school that it's hard to do, but he didn't get to finish the job because of Corona, because Illinois shut their stuff down before Missouri did, and they didn't get to play in their sectional or their sectional final, and didn't get to go through Chicago and see what they could have done. And it dings up Caleb Love's resume too, because he's the first. I mean, he's the McDonald's All-American. He's the Jordan Brand guy. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year, the Mr. Basketball Missouri, Mr. Show Me Basketball. And he got to state as a junior, and there was one play away, and Rockbridge pulled it out. And then they were headed back this year, and it was the first time CBC had gone. I mean, CBC is, a really good program. This was going to be their first time going to back-to-back Final Four since 58, 59, and 60.
That's saying something for a school like that, too.
You know what I'm saying?
They've
So
had a lot of
like his resume speaks for itself. And if he had the opportunity to go to state and win a championship, well, maybe that fifth spot on that all-decade team is his and not Roosevelt Jones or Cam Beachside. Maybe it's his, but I couldn't stamp him. He didn't have the championship because they didn't get it as juniors, and it was just that missing piece. So unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword a little bit, I guess, because I don't elevate Love to that first team because I thought those other guys had a little bit better resume, and I elevate Rayshon a little bit, and with the COVID and the Corona kind of holding him down. So I don't know. So it was really difficult. I mean, there's guys on this team that or the guys that didn't make this team that were phenomenal players. Like Ben McLemore didn't make the team.
Yeah.
Ben McLemore, I was looking at it. I went back and did his numbers. Ben McLemore, as a junior at Wellston, led them to state. I think they finished third, maybe fourth. I'm not sure. I don't recall. They didn't win. I do know that. As a junior at Wellston, Ben McLemore averaged 28, 13 with 6 assists, 2.5 steals, and 2 blocks a game.
Jeez.
Every time he took 28, 13, and 6. Every time he took the court. That is unbelievable.
Amazing.
But Wellston closed before his senior year, and he transferred to Oak Hill and then transferred out of Oak Hill to somewhere else and kind of disappeared. So it's like, well, that guy, I couldn't include him. I didn't think. I couldn't exclude these other guys because of how his career kind of shook out. Had he stayed at Wellston and he was phenomenal, I think maybe he has a first team case, honestly, if they can do some things at Wellston, but the school closed. Torrance Watson is a guy who wasn't able to crack this list. He averaged 29 points as a junior, over, I think, 31 as a senior, scored 53 times his senior year, including against Charleston in a quarterfinal that his team did not win. And he never won a championship. He got to 2 Final Fours, 1 championship game, and Northwest Academy in the city beat him. So that was a guy that was hard to leave off. And we didn't get all their statistics, which is another part of this puzzle.
I was going to say, like, the caveats you probably have to put on doing these teams with stats, with, throwing in the coronavirus thing to it, schools closing, merging, all this kind of stuff, kids transferring, like, these things aren't all black and white, cut and dry, I can imagine, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I thought that the first 4 spots on the first team, I mean, that's easy. Like those are there, but everything else, it's kind of figuring it out, looking at it, and taking into consideration, what is your statistical output? What does your team do? What was your success? How many years did you play at a high level? Like BJ Young. BJ Young had one amazing senior season. Like, well, everybody gets one senior season, but he had one season of varsity ball, that he played for his career. He played 51 varsity games over the course of 3 years, 16 as a sophomore, 5 as a junior, 30 as a senior. Now, over that time, he averaged 20 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. His senior year, which was incredible, he scored 859 points. He was a 1,000-point scorer in 51 career games. Like, that's absurd. But he only had the 1 year. Now, he beat Brad Beal and that Chaminade team in an all-time classic game. They went on to win state, and they were dominant that year, but that was only the 1 year. So when we look at the grand scope, it's like, you were amazing, but I needed
body work.
2 varsity seasons. Let me get 3 varsity seasons, because everybody who's on this list was productive for more than 1 season. It was 2, if not 3, if not 4.
Full body work. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what probably got me when I took a peek into your mentions, the people that were tweeting at you, and it made me laugh because everyone that had an issue with something weren't all playing by the same rules. I mean, you had some people, you could have probably done a all-decade private school team, all-decade West County team, all-decade city team. I mean, people upset that Vashon so-and-so got left off, DeSmet so-and-so. I mean, it was left and right. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, people are really riled up about something that, I mean, let's be honest, it's a great thing to do. It's great, something for the kids to point to and say, oh, this is great honor, I appreciate it. But in the grand scheme of things, and not the,
it's just like they got so fired up about something that in the grand scheme of things it's not going to matter a whole lot. But
no, but we have nothing else to talk about. But we have nothing else to argue about. So,
but we
and
got
then,
this now.
We got Michael Jordan in The Last Dance on ESPN every weekend, kind of giving us that little taste of something. But everybody's frustrated. They're locked in their house. They're stewing on stuff. And the thing that I really love was, I think when everybody was barking at me and mad at me and this, that, and the other, which, it's coming from a place where I love my guy. Yeah. Why don't you love my guy like I love my guy? Yeah. And that's why I don't take it personal.
Right.
Because, they're your guy. You're supposed to love your guy, and you think your guy's the best guy ever, and that's fine. But
and you're the guy.
I have to make decisions. Like, I'm curious because Frank was when I talked to Cusimano today on his radio show, he was talking about how Jason and Bradley Beal are going to do their own.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Their own all-decade teams tonight on Instagram. He's like, "Are you looking forward to it?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I'm for everybody's list because this list stuff is tough.
Right.
Like, how do you do this? And what a lot of people like to do, and maybe we can segue to what we were talking about, where we kind of hitting at earlier, was like they like to exclude Illinois.
Yeah.
They like to say, well, he's not from St. Louis. Oh, he's not? Okay. Like these guys, well, you cross the Mississippi where we don't include those guys. But we cover that 45 mile radius. People over in Illinois read the website. They buy the newspaper.
Those teams play against St. Louis teams.
E.J. Liddell, his senior year, beat Chaminade, CBC, and Vashon.
Yeah.
But he's not from St. Louis. Like, my coworker texted me. He's like, "You need to check this out." And I looked at it. Belleville West is a mile closer to Busch Stadium than Chaminade.
So you got to do
what's more St. Louis than Busch Stadium? Like, but he's not from St. Louis. Oh, okay.
So in addition to the all private school team, the all city team, you got to do a separate all Missouri team and a separate all STL High School Sports Illinois team.
Oh yeah, it's the River War. We have to do a River War team.
So did you get this much feedback off the football?
No, not at all. And the thing with football is that it was the rosters were so big.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot easier, not easier, but it's a lot more people get love.
Right.
I did 74 biographies for that between the first team, second team, third team, and then the all-purpose and kicker punter guys.
Yeah.
And then I actually, the only real blowback I got from that was the long snappers were frustrated they weren't recognized. The long snappers. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Like, long snapper of the decade. I'm sorry, that was not something that really came up as I was putting together 74 biographies and trying to figure out who the 15 best offensive linemen of the last 10 years were. If you have a formula to tell me that, I would love to hear it, because that stuff is not easy.
Yeah.
So, no, there was not nearly enough blowback, not nearly as much blowback, I should say, with the football guys. But basketball, because St. Louis and the region is so good at it, because everybody has their favorites, because we spend the winter what else do we have? It's like blues hockey and high school basketball.
Yeah.
Like, that's, if you're a sports fan in St. Louis, those are your options.
Right.
Like, I mean, or the Billikens. I mean, obviously the Billikens, but there again, it's basketball.
Right.
So, and
that trends whichever way, because some people don't get into college basketball. Like, I know you do as a Billiken grad. I do, Missouri State grad. I watch anybody play, top 25 basketball. So, but again, some people, some things, other people, other things. It's just funny to me.
So everyone's passion for the game and love of the game and love of their guy, it just brings it out, combined with the fact that we have nothing else to really,
perfect
to
timing.
Really focus our attention on. Yeah.
Perfect timing. So what's next? Are you guys going to do baseball? You going to do spring sports, track all decade, things like that still to come?
Those are still to come. We will do one for all the all the sports we cover. Okay. So like lacrosse, boys track, girls track. I will be handling track duties for those two teams. Baseball will be part of that. Girls soccer, water polo. Water polo is in the spring. That'll be part of what we do. And I'm missing something. Boys volleyball. That's another one we do here. That's considered a quote unquote club sport or emerging sport under the state guidelines. But we're going to do everything. We'd hoped to not have to do it. Like, the reason the All Decades even came up was because, coronavirus shut everybody down.
Yeah. You're not out covering sports right now like you normally would be.
Correct. So we were hoping that the spring wouldn't be completely put to bed, that life would resume somewhat normally and we could just do a regular spring season or an abbreviated spring or something. But when word came out that, we're closing schools and there's not going to be any sports this spring going into summer, it was like, okay, then the spring gets its turn too. So we'll be doing All Decade spring sports as well. I don't know that they'll generate as much interest or heat as basketball has, because the basketball community was pretty fired up this past couple days. But it'll be fun to go back and tell those stories. Like, that was the best part about this. Was for football, we did defense one day, offense the next day. And I got to talk to Jason Meehan. He was our defensive player of the decade. He was the only 2-time All-Metro defensive player of the year in his time and over the past 10 years. And that guy, like, he couldn't get a D1 offer. Like, he led his team to 27 consecutive victories and finished his senior season without a Division I football offer, despite playing middle linebacker at Webster Groves and basically dominating everyone who crossed his path. Well, eventually he gets to Northern Illinois because he does get a scholarship, and then I get to tell his story. And it was 2 days after Christmas. Northern Illinois had played in its bowl game, and he was driving home, and he got into a car wreck.
Oh man!
And then he escaped the car wreck without catastrophic injury, but he dislocated his hip, which required surgery, which meant he wasn't able to do a pro day at Northern Illinois. He wasn't able to do camps. He wasn't able to do any of that stuff. He ended up, the accident was in December. He wasn't jogging until the middle of June, going into July, before he was fully back doing his thing. So, but while he was a student at Northern Illinois, academically, he crushed it, and he got an academic scholarship to University of Wisconsin Law School. So his backup plan to the NFL was law school, and now he's currently he's a public defender in Milwaukee, making a difference in the community and still crushing it. So I got to tell that story, was my point.
Yeah.
And then I got to tell Deron Neal's story, a guy who was, among the best to ever do it, who's, he lost in the semifinals as a sophomore at DeSmet, as a junior at DeSmet. Senior year, they lost to St. Louis U High in an all-time classic game over at the U High. So he never got to state. They lost in the semifinals when he was at Oklahoma, but he got in the Arena League, and then he made the championship winning catch in his last year of Arena League football. So he finally got a ring. And he was so excited about that. And it meant so much to him, because as we get old, like, we don't, teenagers, when we're teenagers, we don't have perspective because we're young and dumb. That's part of the process.
Living in the moment.
And it was fun to talk to him and Meehan, and then Roosevelt Jones, who was the feature story for basketball. It was fun to talk to them about how they had changed and kind of look back on their time as a player and where they are now, and hearing how they'd grown, how they'd gone on to do things, and how their perspective had changed and how they see it now. It was really, really entertaining to talk to those guys, and a real joy.
Pretty cool.
And that was part of what I like so much about it. I mean, the Twitter beef is one thing, and telling people stories and sharing those with people was another.
Well, obviously, all the tweets show one thing: everyone's passionate about high school hoops in St. Louis. But the other thing I think you got to keep in mind too is that hopefully everybody appreciates the stuff that you and all the other writers that cover prep sports in the area do, because showing these kids some love. One thing I've recognized now, working in a school district, those parents and those kids actually appreciate it because they don't always get it. So when they get some ink, when they get some photos, get some coverage, I think they all love it. So it's a shout out to what you guys do in covering prep sports in the area.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody who told me I was a moron and an idiot and an adult and a clown emoji and whatnot, there has been as many, if not more, people sending me notes and telling me, "Geez, man, we really appreciate it," or I don't agree with you, but Thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of people, on one side, but I've gotten a lot of support, a lot of people, thanking me for it and appreciating it. And that's nice to hear, because I mean, in my line of work, I'm the last guy in the gym a lot of nights. And then there are those nights where the janitor wants me to get the hell out of the gym. So I end up in my car writing my story in January, which is not fun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you feel about getting in your car in January, but I don't have a fancy one where I can hit the button and it starts warming up before I get there. Like,
got to get you some heated seats.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have that. I'm not rolling like that. So what I, it's nice to be appreciated, because, this job is fun, and I love it, and I'm happy to do it. Like I said, there aren't as many of us doing it as there used to be. But it's a job like anything else, and it has its challenges. And some of those are parents telling you, you messed this up, you messed that up. Why does my kid not get this? The janitor's kicking me out of the gym because he wants to go home. I mean, one school tried to lock me in. It's like, that's not great.
Oh, no. Hopefully that wasn't a Wentzville School District school. No,
not at all. No, Wentzville School District has always been nice to me. Whenever I've needed things, everyone has been awesome. So, but those are the things, like, that it is a job. It has its bad days, and it has its tough days, and it has its challenges. But by far and away, most days are a lot of fun, and I think this town in particular, like, people don't understand just how unique STL high school sports is in the landscape of the country.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing like what we do anywhere else. And if you can find it, please show it to me. But the stuff we do with all the sports, we have 20 years of statistical information on our website for every sport that we cover. Like, we have rosters still, we have totals, we have records. All of that.
Which
We're
is
the
awesome.
only place you can get that. It's the only place, but it would only work in a town like St. Louis.
Yeah. Because
this town cares so damn much about the kids, and high school sports mean so much here. Like, I don't know if it'd work in LA. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in LA.
Right.
I don't know if it would work in Chicago, but it works here because of our community, and that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I got a couple questions. This is going to. Sure. I'm surprised Frank didn't make you do this when you were on the radio with him, because I know he does that no hedging stuff. But I'm going to do it with you, because I'm curious to pick your brain about these. So, just the first thing that comes to your mind, don't think too hard about it. Some might be hard to answer, but I'll take whatever you got. So, favorite school to watch football at?
Oh, to sit in the to sit and watch? East St. Louis.
Favorite school to watch basketball at?
The V. Vashon.
When these two schools match up to play football, you got to be there.
CBC and Eastside.
Two schools matching up to play. Did I give you football or basketball first? I forgot.
You just Eastside, CBC for football.
Okay, basketball now.
Chaminade, CBC. Off the top of my head, that'd probably be the one I'd have to be at. Vashon against anybody who's good is probably the answer. But like, it just traditionally, like, if I'm looking at the schedule, a game I got to circle, Chaminade, CBC is probably it.
Makes sense. Holiday basketball tournament that's usually a hot ticket that you can't miss.
See, that's interesting.
And that's because I know you're saying, because that's changed over the years now, right?
Yes, because Merrimack doesn't do its tournament anymore, and its tournament field has kind of withered a bit. But the St. Louis U High Winter Round Ball, Winter Round Ball Classic has kind of stepped in as the tournament to be at. That's where CBC and St. Louis Christian played. You were there.
I was there.
In the gym you were up there.
Yes.
So that's probably the one you want to hit, because they've got, mostly, actually, they've got all the really good. Actually, Chaminade does its own tournament. I was gonna say they got all the MCC schools there, but they don't. So, but CBC's going to be there. Cardinal Ritter's going to be there. Like, you're going to see some high level hoops. St. Louis Christian was there, and they won it this year, and they're only going to be better this year. So that's probably it. But Collinsville is really good too. Like, Collinsville's tournament in the winter is, like, on the Illinois side, like, that's the hot ticket.
Yes.
And they sell tournament ticket packages over there. Like that's how deep that goes. So this side of the river, I think it's the Winter Round Ball Classic. Over in Illinois, it's definitely Collinsville.
Coach, you always enjoyed interviewing.
Any sport?
Any sport.
Carl Reed is pretty fun, but he likes to, when he's on the record, he doesn't like to chit chat a whole lot. But Justin Tatum.
Yeah.
Justin Tatum is, he's, a lot of people don't like Justin because he's big and he's loud and, he gets on their nerves. But I find Justin to be remarkably bright and a great interview, especially when he's after a win, after a loss, he's kind of a a grump, but that goes for a lot of people. I mean, he's not alone. That's a long list. So him probably, I always like talking to Jay Blossom. He was always good too when he was over at Webster. Jay's a guy I've talked to a lot over the years, so we got a good rapport.
That was my guess for years. It would have been Jay. I thought you'd say him first. So, but just from reading stuff and the quotes you get and his candor and how he would talk. Because I talked to a high school sports reporter in Texas, a guy who he went to school at Missouri State and he's doing prep sports down in Texas, north of Houston. And he said relationships have been the world to him because when you get to know a coach and he sees you there all the time and you're covering his kids and you want to break a story or something's going on, he becomes a guy you can go to that might be able to help you to get some details or something like that. So you build a rapport, you build some relationships, and it can help you in the long run. So I was thinking you may have had that with Jay before he retired.
Oh yeah. Like Jay was always good to me. I mean, shoot, I lived in Webster's gym when I was at the West County Journal. We had divvied up the territory. I got to take everything between 170 and 270, and my coworkers took 270 on. So that meant I got to see Webster all the time. I got to see Maplewood all the time when they were really, really good. I'd get to see Chaminade, CBC, DeSmet. Like, I was around that a lot. I mean, even Vianney, Vianney's they had a really good run there. And shoot, their best team didn't even get to state. Their best team lost to McClure North in the quarterfinal. I think it was their second loss that year because Cam Beachide and Cardinal Ritter beat them. But yeah, I think Vianney was 29-2, 27-2, I want to say, when they lost to McClure North, who went on to win back-to-back state championships. Wow. So
this might be a tough one, but I've got a game. If you could think of a game that stands out as when you walked out of the gym, you were like, wow, that happened. That was a game. Football, basketball, whatever. Do you have one of those games that was a wow moment?
Lutheran North Trinity district championship at Lutheran North when the whole city showed up, and Lutheran North looked like it was going to win. Trinity came back, and I rewrote that because it was a late start. It took a while to get there was I think they ended up being 48-46 was the final. Lots of points. And so my deadline was ugly that night. Like, I'm in the press box sweating, wondering what in God's green earth I'm going to figure this one out and get them a story in some kind of semblance of time they can actually print this amazing game. But they scored so many points, it just took forever. That game, man, it came down. They stopped Isaiah Williams from scoring the tying 2-point conversion with no time on the clock. Maybe 3 seconds on the clock. Like, they had scored the touchdown to get them within 2. They went for 2, and they stuffed him just shy of the goal line. And he was going in. Isaiah was a man. Like, Isaiah's at Illinois now, but he was on his 2 feet, one of the best quarterbacks I've seen, especially in the last decade. And they stuffed him at the goal line to save the game and win the district championship. Now they ended up losing to Lamar, who went on to be the 7-time state champion that year in the semifinal. That was at Lutheran North, but yeah, that's probably my football game. Basketball, I would say, I did this on Twitter the other day with Earl. When Webster Groves and Kickapoo played, that really good Kickapoo team with Jared Ritter's senior year, Courtney Ramey had a runner and then got fouled. So runner and one in the last, last 10 seconds, last 8 seconds. So I have the stat sheet laying around because I kept that one. I don't have it at my fingertips right now, but I kept that one because it was so bananas. Because he hits the runner to tie it, and one hits the free throw to put them up. They win the game, and then they go on to beat the daylights out of. I don't even remember who they beat in the championship. At least something or other, I think. I'm not even sure. But yeah, the championship game that year was the semifinal.
I don't know if you were there. My game that I was going to see if I can jog your memory, the Merrimack tournament a couple years ago, St. Mary's. I think this was the tournament championship game. St. Mary's, Hazelwood Central. Yeah. That game was nuts.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun because those two teams talked trash to each other the whole time.
Yes,
we're better,
did. We're
this, we're that. So that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was when St. Mary's really started to kind of put its. Or was St. Mary's the defending champ that year? Oh, I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
I've seen so many damn games, Derek. A lot of them are blending together.
It's all good. It's all good. My last one for you, and I'll let you go.
Sure.
You are now put in charge of Misha.
Oh, God.
One thing you would change. Just one.
One thing I would change.
Only one.
I only get one. So I can't restructure where the state track meet is so Jeff City can't kick me out of their press box an hour after the game.
If that's the one you want.
No. Now, if I had one change with Misha, I would do a one-time free transfer rule. I think a lot of bull crap would be put to bed if everybody got one free transfer. Because when you're talking about high school kids, you're talking about it's a very finite number of, like, you only get your 4 years. Like, it is what it is.
Right. So
I think, coach relationships, academic relationships, family things, like, there's a lot that life can lead kids to a lot of different places. And honestly, I don't think the state goes out of its way to stop kids from playing. I don't think that's it at all. I just think that it's, when it comes down to it, they have their reasons and their ways to do things. I think if you give everybody one free get out of jail free card, you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want one time, and the second time you're done. Like, then you gotta be 365 and sit. But if everybody got one free transfer, I think that would be the one thing I would do.
There you go. Appreciate it, sir. This has been fun.
Thanks, Derek.